word progressive, which has a real American meaning, going back to the progressive era at the beginning of the 20th century. I consider myself a modern progressive.
You know, my hero is a guy named Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt used to say, walk softly, talk softly, but carry a big stick.
When I was watching the debate, and then I saw John McCain say that, I was like, please, America, please read history. Please, please, please. This is why we always feel like there's no choice. It's like we vote for one or we vote for the other and we end up at the same place. This is why. We're back with R.J. Pastrito, Burton Folsom Jr., and Larry Schweikart. We're talking about the progressive movement, the early 20th century. Did any of you guys see that live happen with Hillary Clinton?
Yes.
You did? And what was your thought, Larry? When that happened, what did you think?
At least she's telling the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, I thought, oh my gosh, everybody quick Google early 20th century progressive, because that'll stop it dead in its tracks, and yet people, it didn't, because nobody knows who these people are. Are they different today, fundamentally different today, progressives, than they were in the early 20th century?
They're very similar.
Well, Glenn,
Go ahead, RJ.
Right.
I think that they're similar in the following respect. They think that government is whatever it needs to be. Whatever any human problem is, whatever any crisis comes up, government's got to be there to meet that. That was the progressives.
But they
thought history drove government. That's today.
You know, there's a few things here that I think are interesting, because here's the progressives then and now. And if you look at it, okay, here's Theodore Roosevelt. Theodore Roosevelt is John McCain, a progressive. He wants health care. He wants all these big government programs. But the difference between the progressives of Republicans and the progressives of Democrats, if I'm not mistaken, John McCain says, we're America, and we'll send the troops in. We'll do it. We'll dictate to the rest of the world. That was Theodore Roosevelt as well, right? That's the Republican version.
Yes.
Then you have Woodrow Wilson, who is really more of Barack Obama, whereas, well, we could even use, we don't have Bill Clinton up here, but we can even use George Bush, which is more UN, correct?
Little bit with Bush. I would make a separation.
He's more...
Yeah, there you go.
He's in between, because he did favor the tax cuts and the capital gains cuts.
I'm talking about war specifically.
Sure.
The difference between a Republican progressive and a Democratic progressive and our founders. Our founders said we should be Switzerland. We should stay out of everybody's business, be friends with everybody. I mean, if you're going to mess with us, we're going to pound you. Thomas Jefferson created the Marines for the Islamic pirates that were happening, right?
Yeah.
And so they didn't take any guff, but they weren't spreading democracy. Progressives spread democracy and gooey goodness. One does it through a UN or a League of Nations. One does it through our U.S. military. Right?
Good distinction.
Fair.
Okay. Fair? Just fair?
That's fair. It's a fair assessment.
It's like it's okay.
Just.
It's like
It's just.
It's not okay. Good. Thank you. So what is the difference? First of all, who's this guy? John Dewey. Okay, we just talked about John Dewey. FDR. Who is Barack Obama more like?
Well, he's more like Franklin Roosevelt. The two of them very much believe in using government to solve problems. When the programs fail, you simply raise taxes. You have scapegoats. Wall Street is a scapegoat to both men. The programs fail, stimulus packages fail, you go back and you have businessmen to blame. The program is a good idea, progressivism is good, but it didn't work this time because businessmen got in the way.
Let me go here on something and see if you guys can. This is what's his name? George Bernard Shaw. We just played some tape this week and last week. He's frightening. He is absolutely frightening. Would you agree, Larry? You're laughing. Yeah, he's frightening. I mean, he's the guy who said, hey, you know, chemists, please come up with a humane gas to get rid of some of these people that just don't know any better. Here's Margaret Sanger. Now, Margaret Sanger, Hillary Clinton has talked about Margaret Sanger as Planned Parenthood.
Yes.
Also, Planned Parenthood, its roots with Margaret Sanger, a progressive, really more in line with George Bernard Shaw. It's to get rid of the undesirables. Is it not? True or false?
The eugenics fits in here very, very carefully.
Correct, correct. But Woodrow Wilson also has a lot in common here, because he's a real, I mean, he's a dirtbag racist, is he not?
He is. The number of, in fact, we had very few African Americans in federal government, but they were reduced under Wilson.
And did we not, RJ, did I not read in your book that Woodrow Wilson, we had a desegregated military until Wilson, and he resegregated everybody?
He resegregated the whole civil service. Yes, Glenn.
Okay. Now you have to decide. These are all progressives here today. You have to decide, do we see any of the traits of some of these progressives now? I think the answer is yes, but you do your own homework. We'll be right back in a second. All right. We have tried to, in the last week, give you an idea of what the progressive movement really was and what it is today. Where does history meet the present and possibly our future? We've laid out the problems. I want to talk a little bit about the solutions, and maybe I'm too focused on education is the solution, self-education is the solution. But gentlemen, help me out here. I think once progressivism is exposed for what it truly is, what the roots are, who's involved, what their motivations are, and what they believe the founders were all about, I think it disintegrates. Does anybody disagree with that?
Nope.
RJ?
No, Glenn, the progressives knew that they weren't going to get very far during their own time by citing, you know, Hegel and Marx and the rest of the lot, and so they really tried to put progressivism under the guise of the tradition of the American founding. Franklin Roosevelt did that as well. So to the extent that people become aware of what's really at work in the progressive movement, both of yesterday and today, I think that's the only hope we have.
Go ahead.
At Hillsdale College, where RJ and I both teach, we have a required course on the Constitution. I think if we had colleges and schools across the nation requiring courses on the Constitution, studying the document, what does it say, and then what do other people say that it says?
Right.
And we can study the progressives in that light, and people can see the dichotomy, see how they're different, and go from there.
The interesting thing, Larry, that I see is, you know, if you read Democracy in America, or if you read anything from the 1800s, you will see that people in pubs or in bars or, you know, on the street, in offices, they actually discussed the Constitution. They actually talked about it and said, well, no. And the founders, the most brilliant thing that I think the founders did, when the Constitution is changed, you don't erase anything, you add it. For instance, the progressive prohibition is still in the Constitution. It's just repealed later. So you leave the scars of history so you can see, oh, we made a really bad mistake here. When did we stop talking in public about changing the Constitution, for instance, health care? In the 1930s, FDR said we got to have a second Bill of Rights. When did that happen? When did we unplug, really?
I would say it was sometime in between the end of World War II and the end of the Great Society. That's where you start to lose the concept that you're actually dealing with the Constitution and not just whatever some president or legislature decides it wants to throw in there.
See, give me, if somebody doesn't want their head to hurt, because RJ, I swear to you, I love your book, but it made my eyes bleed. It was, I mean, I've never read, I mean, it's
you
like...
You look pretty good now. You look like you survived it. Okay.
I mean, I was reading it and I'm like, okay, I got to read that paragraph again. What the hell does that even mean?
Well,
I mean,
think of my poor students.
Give me, besides your own books, give me one book each where you say, if you're going to understand something critical for America and its history or the progressive movement, this is what you should read. Anybody?
I like the book A Conflict of Visions by Thomas Sowell. It's right there.
This one?
Yes.
Why? What's in it?
Because he outlines what goes behind the thinking of a progressive and what goes behind the thinking of a constitutionalist in the areas of law, in the areas of economics, in all sorts of areas of life. What are they thinking when they come up with the ideas that they have?
Larry?
Liberal Fascism by Jonah Goldberg.
It's
fantastic book.
Unbelievable. RJ?
How about the Federalist Papers? That's what we make our students read at Hillsdale
the one that makes your
College.
head hurt.
It's got everything right there.
The one that makes your head hurt.
You got it.
You know, America, I can't thank you enough for, I mean, Charlie Rose, this show ain't. I can't thank you enough for watching and being interested in the Republic and its history. Because I asked our guests not to promote their own books, I will tell you these 3 books should be read by you. Patriot's History of the United States, New Deal or Raw Deal, you want to see the future, look at the past, and Woodrow Wilson, The Roots of Modern Liberalism. From New York, good night, America.